In eastern China, deep within the Tongguang region of Anhui province, lies a small town called, with a population of just over 4,000 people, it 39's been dubbed the most boring town in the world. Despite the lack of entertainment venues, tens of thousands of people flock here every year, not for work or business opportunities, but for one simple reason. Here exists a massive cram school, where students study 16 hours a day live, in dormitories with no electricity or hot water, and are only allowed to yell at their parents for 3 hours each Sunday. All of this is in preparation for an event that could change a person 39's entire destiny. That in 39's the college entrance exam. China and a 39's national college entrance examination goes far beyond the definition of an academic test. This is an extremely brutal battle for survival, where your entire future is decided by a single exam. But why does it take place in June every year? The Gaokao National College Entrance Exam lasts from 2 to 3 days depending on the province, with a total exam time of about 9 hours. Students must take 3 compulsory subjects: mathematics, Chinese language and literature, and a foreign language. In addition, there are elective courses from either the natural sciences or the maximum total score is 750. Anyone who scores above 700 is considered exceptionally talented. But what makes the college entrance exam special is not the difficulty of the questions, but its unique position. In many countries, standardized test scores are only one part of the application. Schools also consider GPA, extracurricular activities, essays, and letters of recommendation. In China, the college entrance exam is everything. Your score on this exam will determine whether you get into university, which university you attend, and what major you study. The history of the college entrance exam has also been relatively turbulent. It was established in 1952, was later abolished for 11 years in 1977 after Mao Zedong and 39's death. The Gaokao was restored. Today, the Chinese view the Gaokao not just as an exam, but as a symbol of fairness, where children from poor and rich families sit in the same room, take the exam at the same time, work on the same questions, and there is no room for lying about the scores. To understand just how important the college entrance exam is, look at what happens on the exam days each year. The whole of China held its breath, temples and shrines packed with parents praying to bring good luck to their children. Many men even wear Gyeongsam, a traditional garment, usually reserved for women. On the streets, police were stationed at every corner, ordering drivers to turn off their horns and demanding absolute silence. Construction work within a 250-meter radius of the exam site must be stopped. Outside the construction site, everyone waited in silence and anxiety. But this period of apparent standstill in China lies a harsh truth. When over 13 million students squeeze through a narrow door, fairness also becomes a hell of unusual pressure. Imagine you are an 18-year-old student in China. After 12 years of studying, your final challenge is a 9-hour exam that could determine your entire future. So how many points would you need to burn through college? The answer depends on who you are competing against. More than 13.4 million students entered the college entrance examination hall. By 2025, this number will only decrease slightly to 13.35 million. Of those, only about 40% scored high enough to get into any university. That means 6 out of 10 students were eliminated right from the start. But this is what in 39's really worth mentioning. China has 2 80-20 universities, which sounds like a lot, but only about 112 of them are part of Project 211, meaning they are recognized as top-tier institutions, truly leading the way to a bright future. The average acceptance rate for these schools is only about 5% or 650,000 students. But if you dream of getting into Tsinghua or Peking University, schools considered the Harvard and MIT of China, you have to be in the means that out of 13 million people, only about 13,000 students have the opportunity to reach this door, and that is the first cruel paradox of the Gaokao. When over 13 million students are crammed into one narrow door, the difficulty of the exam no longer matters. Regardless of whether the exam is difficult or not, the number of people who pass will still have to be small. Therefore, some math questions. in the college entrance exam require knowledge far beyond the high school curriculum, not to test ability but to eliminate ineligible candidates. In other words, the Gaokao National College Entrance Exam doesn't 39 to just measure how good you are, it measures how much better you are than other people. With such fierce competition, Chinese students are willing to do anything to gain even the smallest advantage. Many students administer intravenous fluids to themselves while studying because it helps improve concentration. Most of the other students study from early morning until late at night to the point of exhaustion. Many female students have to take birth control pills to delay their periods, thereby avoiding disruption to their exams. This is why social media is flooded with stories of students pushing themselves beyond their limits, falling into anxiety, depression, and burnout. Many people ask if such a sacrifice is worth it, but in China, this question is virtually non-existent because the entire society is united by a particular belief. In many countries, if you don't in 39 get into university, you still have options like vocational training, starting a business, taking a year off and retaking the exam, or simply finding a different, more exciting path. The Batai 39s as practically non-existent. It Fei 39s not because the law prohibits it, but because the whole society has agreed on a belief. The college entrance exam is a fateful turning point, the only path for ordinary people to escape poverty and a measure of human classification. This belief is not unfounded. It is built on both cultural and economic foundations. First, let 39s look at the cultural roots. China is the cradle of Confucianism, where the idea of on quat, those who excel in learning become officials quat, was prevalent. There were 4 social classes in ancient Chinese society: scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants. To climb the social ladder, there is only one path achieving success in the Gaokao National College Entrance Examination today is essentially a modern version of that system. As researchers from Harvard have noted, the modern Chinese examination system retains many fundamental characteristics from the ancient examination system, and the belief that examinations are the only way to change 1 in 39's fate has been passed down from generation to generation for thousands of years. But culture is only half the story. The other half is the harsh economic reality. High exam scores not only determine which university you get into, but they also predict your income for many years to come with a high degree of accuracy. If you graduate from top universities, you will have the opportunity to become a manager, professor, or politician. Research shows that graduates from top universities in China approximately 40% higher salaries in their first jobs compared to others. However, if you graduate from a top-tier or lower-ranked university, you in 339 will face fierce competition for basic paying office jobs, and if you done in Fei 39 get into any school, you in Fei 39 end up working as a factory worker or delivery person 12 hours a day for a meager wage at the very bottom of society. When the future is entirely staked on an exam, the psychological burden is inevitable. That 65 to 72% of students preparing for exams exhibit signs of anxiety or mental health issues. Children often experience headaches, stomachache, nausea, chronic insomnia, and even panic attacks. But when the demand and fear became so great, a huge industry sprang up to sell hope to every family, and at the same time it amplified the brutality of the college entrance exam many times over. Returning to you, an 18-year-old student in China, you understand that the Gaokao National College Entrance Exam is the only path to failure. Failing means lifelong failure. So what will you do? Millions of Chinese families have chosen the same answer, sending their children to cram schools. Let in Fei 39s go back to the town of Mao Tanshuang, mentioned at the beginning of the video. The frown on his forehead is not accidental. It was deliberately designed so that students would have nothing to do but study. And indeed, that method works. The private high school here claims a university acceptance rate of 90%, 3 times the average of 30% for the entire Anhui province. But what is the price to pay? Let in 39s follow him to see what a day at this tutoring center is like. The alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. I was jogging for 6 hours, exercising, but I still had a book in my hand. Then came a series of classes that lasted until p.m. If you in 39 wondering about break times, okay, they're in Fei 39's only one 20-minute lunch break. for you. You return to the dormitory at exactly 1100 p.m. There are no electrical outlets here and no hot water for many years. Students are only allowed to see their parents for 3 hours each Sunday. In total, 16 hours a day are dedicated to studying and related activities. 6 days a week for 3 years, the license was issued. But the mountain factory was in 39th, the harshest place. More than 800 kilometers to the north lies an even more infamous name, Hengshui High School, dubbed the Nquat. Gaokao Hellquat, the epitome of extreme exam preparation in China. The school operates like a military training camp with surveillance cameras monitoring every classroom, and every action is tracked and graded. Drinking water during class is punishable. Looking up from your book is punishable. Talking to your deskmate is punishable. The lightest punishment is writing a self-criticism report, while a harsher one is remaining silent for 45 minutes during the morning reading session. The most drastic change in the school curriculum, while strict, was actually very effective. Compared to the general average, the water element stands out due to its exceptionally high percentage of students admitted to top universities. More broadly, a 2020 study by Peking University showed that Chinese students study an average of 60 hours per week, nearly 11 hours more than adult work. And the pressure isn't in 39T just on the students. It weighs heavily on everyone around them. Teachers are ranked and evaluated based on FA 39 results. If they get accepted into Tsinghua or Peking University, the department in 39's reward of 50,000 yuan, equivalent to nearly 200 million Vietnamese dong, will be divided among all of that student 39's teachers. A good teacher can easily double or triple their salary just from bonuses. Conversely, teachers who are ranked lowest each year may be fired, and the families of the students also have to bear enormous burdens. The Maotan Cram School initially had only 4,000 inhabitants, but as its reputation spread, the population doubled to 8,000. These new residents are the families of the contestants who have driven up real estate prices and consumed about 90% of the local economy. Demon Factory is no longer a town. It in fact 30 giant machine designed for one sole purpose, producing scores. But these machines are crushing things that cannot be measured in points. A report from the Shengui Education Bureau revealed that more than half of the students who committed suicide in the city were under extreme academic pressure. Despite the criticism, parents are still flocking to cram schools like Mao Tangxiang or Hengshui for their children, because they know that, in the competitive world of college entrance exams, humanity is a luxury. The new scores are what will determine the future. But this is what makes a true champion. You might think that, despite its brutality, the college entrance exam is at least fair, rich or poor. Everyone shares a room and lives at the same time. Scores done by 39th lie, but is the truth really that simple? Back to you after 3 years of studying 16 hours a day, you walked into the exam room and scored points. An achievement that 99% of candidates nationwide cannot reach, yet you haven't in 39th accomplished it yet. Meanwhile, a student in Beijing only needed 655 points. A difference of 25 points may not sound like much, but with millions of candidates vying for a spot on the leaderboard, 25 points is the gap between heaven and hell. This is not a coincidence. This is policy. Uses a provincial-level enrollment quota system. Most prestigious universities are based in Beijing and Shanghai, and they prioritize students with a background in those cities. According to 2023 statistics, Peking University admitted 550 students from the capital, with an acceptance rate of 1.2%. Meanwhile, Henan province, with a population many times larger, only had of 0.04%. Even better, candidates in Beijing have their own set of exam questions which are considered much easier than the national exam. In 2023, as many as 7 different sets of exam questions. Beijing, Shanghai, and Tianjin have the right to design their own buildings. In other words, if you were born in Henan or Similar places, you would have to work harder and compete with more people to get fewer spots. Therefore, a heartbreaking term emerged: refugee education. Wealthy parents are willing to spend millions of yuan to buy tiny apartments in Beijing at V39s, not for the purpose of living there, but simply so their children can benefit from having a Hanoi household registration. The point of difference, as mentioned earlier, can change lives forever. As for families without money, they are trapped in a game where the rules are written so that they lose. But inequality isn't in 39 just geographical. There in V39 is another mechanism that was initially created to help the disadvantaged, but now it has become a privilege of the elite, a policy of bonus points. A 2012 test takers who received bonus points revealed shocking results. 60% of them have parents who are officials, cadres, business owners, or technical staff, and they pass on this knowledge because participating in competitions that accumulate bonus points, such as the Science Olympiad, costs a considerable amount of money each time. This is a playing field only for those with unlimited resources. For example, in 2009, a shocking scandal erupted in Chongqing. 31 students were found to have falsified documents claiming to be from ethnic minorities in order to receive extra points. Among those discovered, the majority had parents who were officials and who had sufficient connections to change their children in V39's household registration. But as researcher Chu Zhaohui from the National Academy of Educational Sciences of China points out, these extra points often go to students from families with connections, putting ordinary people at a disadvantage. When policies designed to help the poor become tools for the rich, fairness in the college entrance exam becomes nothing more than a concept heard on television. It could be said that while the college entrance exam promises equality, it also grants privileges to those fortunate enough to be born in the right place. And perhaps that is the greatest tragedy. It not only crushes youth, it also crushes faith and justice. On the day before the college entrance exam, an equally strange scene unfolded across China. That in 39's the image of millions of students tearing apart the textbooks they once knew page by page. Ultimately, what is the purpose of learning when students just want to tear up their books to relieve the burden of the intense exam? But even if you pass all the tests and get into university, finding a job won't in V39 be easy. With a university degree no longer considered a golden ticket to success, and the Chinese job market experiencing a job winter, very quiet period. In Chinese, there in V39's an idiom, and quat, thousands of soldiers and horses crossing a single wooden bridge, quat, meaning thousands of soldiers and horses crowding together to cross a single wooden bridge, which is the Gaokao, as long as the path to social advancement remains a single narrow bridge. The brutality of the Gaokao National College Entrance Exam will continue from generation to generation.